Evening, everybody.
Hello.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining. It's a very important meeting for us today. I know quite a few people are planning to talk, and we usually limit our time to about 2 hours because it's quite exhaustive otherwise. So it's good if people who are speaking just speak exactly to the point so that we'll be able to come to a kind of a conclusion or at least a settlement or a plan at the end of the day. So the plan is I've got a few names who may be able to present. If they at the end, if there are other speakers who want to also put their comments, please raise your hand so we'll go accordingly. And then we'll let them present. Even if they had slides, I can let them present it. And then finally, I would like to have a poll so that the poll will decide what the leads is going to do eventually. So there are about 5 questions in the poll. So you will see the answers there and then on your screens, and I'll explain when it comes to that. So today is a very important subject and a meeting that we are having, and it's about this proposal to establish a nuclear power plant in Sri Lanka. So we don't know the rights and wrongs, and then that's why we are having this discussion. I must say you can talk in Sinhalese or Tamil even with explanations if you want to, but we welcome in whatever the way you can express. Thank you very much. So I will take just 5 minutes to set the background, and then we will invite others, and I will explain a little bit about others as we go. And today, so a nuclear power plant for Sri Lanka. The question is, we have one side, we think it's right. Some people say that, and the others think it's wrong. Now, in science, or even in, say, I'm in the medical background, even in things that are right today sometimes looks very wrong in 10 years' time, and vice versa as well. So basically, what is we decide right or wrong depends on the era you are in. So we are considering this proposal for the current setup we are in Sri Lanka. So that's the plan. So whether it's right for the current situation in Sri Lanka or not. Say 10 years later or 20 years later, this discussion may be completely different. And so that is why we need to focus to the current situation. So in Leeds, what we normally do is we learn, educate, assess, decide Sri Lanka. So that's basically our job here. We learn as much as information as possible and develop exceptional knowledge, the facts, the evidence, experience, and even the statistical projections if you have them. And then apply logic so that you have proper logical process and have a good decision. So if you know the background very well, then obviously you will have very good decision-making process. So just a little set of background. Sri Lanka, we became a bankrupt country on 12th of April 2022. Now, if you look at the factors that led to it, was actually being masterminded because there was been some kind of public money looting in a way, and there have been huge projects that have ended up as white elephants, and there have been covert commissions, as we know in the literature, and all the various expressions people do. So we had ended up in a debt trap. Now, white elephant means we have projects and various developments that are useless, means that's not bringing any profit to the country, and troublesome they are, and also they are expensive, and also very difficult to dispose of as well. So these are the ones that we call white elephants. So with the bankruptcy, what happened was we now had no reserve dollars at all. So it was really down to almost nothing. So this ended up in a situation where we had no dollars. So we have no way to import fuel because, as we discussed earlier on, that we needed quite a lot of diesel or coal power to fill the gaps. So, and those fuel has to be imported. So no power situation, we know that we had no gas, we had no power, electricity cuts, etc., and no fuel for vehicles, etc. So we had a very difficult situation because there was no power. And now the same mastermind that uh, we were led to this situation, same time now proposed a rescue project, which is a nuclear power plant for Sri Lanka. Now, nuclear power plant is coming from Russia, Russian technology, but then we have a problem there again. Uranium. Uranium is the fuel for a nuclear power plant, and the uranium has to be imported as well. So that means we are coming back the same problem. If we don't have dollars, we cannot operate them. So we are back to square one if that is the case. So we need to really see the basically balance books as to how we are going to support uranium. So we've seen this, Russia gears up, we've seen this in the public domain quite a lot, how the politicians are now driving this thing. The question is, we don't know whether it's a debt trap again, or is this a nuclear debt trap, means innovated by the same kind of masters. So then look at the people who we are associating with at the moment. That's the present time. We are talking about the Russian government, not Russian people. It's got an autocratic governance at the moment. Secondly, they are in the middle of a war, although they call it a special operation with Ukraine. And the know in the public media, you all have seen as well, there's a very little respect for human life, for property in this war situation. And there's lots of war crimes that's been created at this particular time. And very recently, about a couple of weeks ago, they tore off all the nuclear treaties that they had with the world and United Nations and so on. So they became non-agreeable to any of the treaties that they had signed before. And also they've attacked nuclear power plants in Ukraine. So we don't really know, will they honor any treaty with us, even if they sign it? For example, nuclear waste removal, that is part of this contract, we believe. Now, funding, where is the funding coming from? So in relation to this funding, what is in return there? What are we going to pay this with? That is another question. So what is the catch? We don't know. So these are the factors that we need to know. So any kind of a feasibility study, I'm not an expert on that, but there are experts who will be speaking on this. Feasibility study. So when we have a national project of this nature, we should have a very clear feasibility study. What is a feasibility study? Is simply an assessment of the practicality of a proposed project and a credible evaluation whether or not a project plan could be successful. This includes how, that means technical feasibility, operational feasibility, economic feasibility, legal feasibility, and schedule feasibility. So if we don't do this and start, like what has happened to our previous white elephant projects, which never had a proper feasibility study, then we will probably end up with the same situation again. So today's question is very specific. Are nuclear power plants the most suitable and best option for power generation for Sri Lanka in this environment, that's the present time, of bankruptcy and high inflation? Or do we not have any alternatives for this power crisis? Less risky, less cost, with no alignment to any country, which will probably something that we have to think about. But that is our question. So today, I hope, let me see, I think Professor Rosa, he's there, it's good. Yeah,
I'm here.
Professor Rosa, okay, very good. I had a talk that you had done earlier on. I can either play that or I can leave it and I can allow you to speak.
First, I will speak, I think.
Okay, I'll leave it out then. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Okay, Professor Rosa is here. Welcome you, Professor Rosa. Thank you for coming in. And it's nice to see you talking. And also, we will have a very short question time at the end of each speaker so that we clarify the issues. And I am just to introduce you a little bit, you are the chairman of the Atomic Energy Authority in Sri Lanka, and also you are the professor of physics in University of Colombo. So just clarify all that for me when we are starting your talk. Thank you, Professor Rosa. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Sorry, I could not attend the last meeting I think you had in February because I was very busy with this exam work. So anyway, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are. So I'll just give the current status. Now, this nuclear power talk actually, as far as I know, started in 2009 in Sri Lanka. So in 2010, I'll give a brief history also. 2010, the cabinet has approved for a feasibility study, and some experts from IAEA came to Sri Lanka and then
Sorry,
had
can we get
some.
Professor's video, please? At the moment, we can't see you.
Oh, you want to see me? Okay.
Please.
Um, so that has happened in 2010. And then in 2015, actually, then the Atomic Energy Authority was divided or separated into two institutions, Atomic Energy Board and Regulatory Council, because at that time the minister was Honorable Partly Champika Ranawaka. He was very much for nuclear. So the reason that he separated this Atomic Energy Authority into two is just to go for nuclear, because if we go for nuclear, we have to have very stringent regulations. So then recently, I mean, we are talking about, or we are discussing always with the IAEA, because we are the focal point of International Atomic Energy Agency. So we had what we call this integrated nuclear infrastructure review. So that happened last year in April. Some experts, 7, 8 experts came to Sri Lanka, and they interviewed all the people, our stakeholder institutions, namely Central Environmental Authority, PUSL, and so on and so on and so forth. And then we prepared a self-evaluation report. So then that was produced to us at the last general conference. And then, so what they have said is, no, depending according to the IAEA standards, they are calling it milestone approach. So we are right at the beginning. That means we are just past the first milestone. That means we have prepared the self evaluation report. They have accepted it. Of course, they have written, or they have given us a lot of recommendations, and that is what we are there in that context. So in the meantime, the Russian Federation, as you mentioned earlier, they have sent us a proposal that was also not recent actually. It was sent in 2013, if I am correct. Maybe I am wrong, but if someone knows about it, they can correct me. 2013, asking us or to cooperate with them to build up a power plant in Sri Lanka. So now the current status is actually they have sent us the proposal, and we have taken, or we have again went to all our stakeholder institutions in Sri Lanka. We got their comments and observations and pros and cons, and we have included everything into their proposal. And last Friday, we handed over that proposal to our line ministry. Line ministry means Ministry of Power and Energy. So then they will send it to the foreign ministry for observations. Then after that, it has to be sent to the Rosatom again. That is the atomic energy sort of affiliated company to Russian government. So then after the review, it will come back to again, and it will go to the Attorney General Department. So for again their comments and observations, and then again we have to submit it to the cabinet. So as far as the Russian thing is concerned, that is there. But in that Russian proposal, yeah, it is true that they have sort of a proposed SMR, small modular reactors for Sri Lanka. They have given us two options. and there's nothing to hide. So they have proposed one option is a barge type, that is on offshore, and the other option is onshore. But all small power, maybe 100 megawatt SMRs. So then, not on top of that, they have already proposed establishment of a nuclear education center in Sri Lanka, and to develop HR, that human resources, and training. I mean, we need the training, as you said. We need very capable people to run this if we are going for this. Then they have even sent us a proposal to for the cyclotron, because I don't know whether you all know that we are right at the right end of the tunnel to establishing a cyclotron in Sri Lanka, medical cyclotron, to produce FDG for PET scans. That is in cooperation with the private sector. So that program is going on very well. Before end of this year, we will start that project with the help of private sector. So there are a lot of sort of articles and different guidelines that they have proposed. So that is the situation at the moment. Then about 2 weeks back, the government, actually cabinet, has approved these two conventions, Vienna Convention on Civil Liability, and the other one is the Convention of Supplementary Compensation. And the government sort of declared that they are looking to go for nuclear. So we had several meetings. Even last week we had meetings with our regulatory council, the CEB. So government has instructed me to develop a work plan by consulting our regulatory council and the CEB. So so that's what we are doing. We want to do it at the moment. So by no means actually we are going for nuclear power maybe in next year or whatever. It takes a long time. But that is the current situation. So briefly, so we are there at this moment. That is the current situation that I want to mention all these facts to you all.
Thank you, Professor Rosa, for updating the current situation. Are there any questions from the audience? I'll put into gallery. Are there any questions from the audience?
May I ask?
Yeah, I've got a list of people now. Kirti first, Ranjan second, and Lakshman, and then Parakrama.
Right. May I ask my question?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Now, could I know the time scale for this SMR? When would it start producing, and what is the cost estimate?
Actually, now the SMRs are still developing, as you all know. In any case, if you go for nuclear, that will take about 5, 6, 7 years, maybe at most 7 years. But if you go for this offshore one, what the Russians said, what they say is it will be less timely with a small time, not really small, but that also takes about 3.5 years. But if you go for an onshore one, it will be around 7 years. So still to go for nuclear, but to tell you the truth, I mean, I don't want to hide anything. Now the current president, these talks were there for a long time to build up a nuclear power plant, but it never went above the ministry. I mean, I had nothing to hide. I mean, I'm not, I mean, මට එහෙම උනක් නෑ මේ nuclear මේව කරන්න කියලා, but because I am the chairman, because according to our act, we had to educate the government and ask and tell them the pros and cons. So the current president, Mr. Anil Wickremesinghe, is very keen on this. So, in Sri Lanka, the government is the president, whether you like it or not. I mean,
So, I didn't get the answer to my second question. What is the cost estimate?
Cost estimate actually for a barge type, it's about $1 to $2 billion. For a onshore ones, it take about $3 to $4 billion.
Did you say billion or million?
Billion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kirti, thank you there. Thank you, Professor Rosa. And Ranjan, yes, Ranjan, you can ask the question.
Thank you. A few questions. You
Yeah.
say now this. I think Sri Lanka. Not I think actually Sri Lanka's urgent energy need is urgent and immediate. This atomic energy project is not going to give immediate results. It's going to take a very long time.
Uh,
So
yeah,
what is
because even if you build up onshore power, that might take about 7 years. You know, according to the CEB, we had a lot of discussions with the CEB. CEB's generation plan is up to 2040, they go with 70% renewables. 70% renewable means including the hydropower. So hydropower, you know, can be around 30%, 45%, depending on the rain. And
70% is only up to 30.
But
70%
I have
is
not
only up to
finished.
2030.
yeah,
Right, Rosa, Mr. Rosa, I have not finished. That's one.
yeah,
It's going to. So what
yeah,
we need is an immediate solution. We can't
yeah.
wait till this project, atomic project, comes online, which is going to take several years. The other important issue is how much is this going to cost? This is going to cost, as far as I know, is around 6 billion, right? Now, already in 2022, we were unable to pay the debts that fell due, and we declared that we are bankrupt. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Then thereafter, please remember, every year for the next 7 years, we have to pay back our debts at the rate of $6 to $7 billion. Right? Remember that. In addition to what we have defaulted, right? We have to pay every year $6 to $7 billion. Now, who says this? Not me. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says this, right? So we have to accept it. On top of it, who is the economist or professional who is going to propose that Sri Lanka should borrow some more money when we cannot pay back what has fallen due, and for the next 7 years or so we have to pay $6 to $7 billion every year. Now we come up, some professionals claiming to be highly professional are coming up with a proposal which would result in adding more debt. Sri Lanka is going to get entrapped in an unrecoverable, irretrievable debt. There are better solutions than this. See, this is not a true professional who's using his professional knowledge for the good of the country will never come forward with a proposal like this. At best, what we can say is that this proposal can be taken up when Sri Lanka's economy recovers. Then we can consider it, but certainly not now. Thank you.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
shall I answer that question?
Yeah, okay,
Actually,
Rosa.
yeah. Okay, maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Am I allowed to answer that
Yeah,
question?
Rosa. Yes, you can answer the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, frankly, we have not discussed any financial proposals with Russians, but we have studied the Bangladesh proposal. Now, you know, in Bangladesh, they are building up two huge 1,200 megawatt nuclear power plants. So, according to their sort of a financial model, it's 15 years grace period, and after that, with a small interest. Remember that, yeah, it is true that to build up a nuclear power plant, you need large sums of monies. But the running cost is very, very small, because unlike coal or diesel or whatever, we don't have to pump tons and tons of fuel. So, that is the answer to my question. But your question is well regarded, actually. So we have, because if you are going for this, I mean, we don't have to go only for Russian proposals. Even other countries can send us proposals if we have decided to go for nuclear. So we can study all these proposals and come up with the better ones. So according to this Russian proposal, actually that is the situation. We have not gone into financial model, but we have studied the Bangladesh model.
Thank you, Professor Rosa. Professor Lakshman has also raised the hand. Professor Lakshman, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Chula. First of all, thank you for organizing this meeting. It's very unique on this nuclear issue. I don't think we have had this kind of Vidvat Katikawak. Rosa is a friend of ours, physics community. So we are trying to promote renewable energy, and is of course naturally atomic energy. I have two basic questions. Sri Lankan presidents probably have signed a global declaration UN at the UN summits, COP22 and COP26, Glasgow 2021, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, to go for renewables in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka electricity to be generation using renewables and not a word of nuclear. Then based on those, CEB has prepared the long-term generation plans up to 2041, where nuclear is not at all mentioned even. So why Sri Lanka is proceeding with something which has not been agreed at global treaties?
So actually now, if you can go with renewables, I think we all will be happy. Why not? Now,
Why not?
I mean,
Why not?
So why don't you all convince the government and the leaders of this country? You can supply the power demand of this country using renewables. So that is the end of the question. I mean, so now according to the COP agreement, we have to minimize the carbon emission by 2040 and 2050. We have to have net zero carbon emission. So I mean solar power, wind power, I mean we all like, but I can't speak on behalf of the CEB, but what CEB says is just from solar and wind, they can't run the show. So they need the thermal power to back up, to have the base load. Because, you know, even to run a family, you need a base economy. Then the other current things come on top of that. So therefore, I mean, I am not against these renewables. So in fact, now if you give me in March 8th, UK has sent a letter to the IAEA officials. UK remains committed to delivering energy security and combating climate change, and believes that nuclear energy should play an important role in this. They are going to boost deployment of nuclear energy up to 24 gigawatt by 2050. So, so that is the question. So if CEB says we don't need nuclear, we don't need coal, because anyway 2043 our Norwich solar plant has to be decommissioned. So if you can supply the net amount of energy from renewables, there are no problems.
Yeah, but the CEB has already prepared the generation plans up to 2041 using renewables.
Which are no nuclear.
No, that there is nuclear. The current one just look.
No.
I will send it.
Long-term generation plan up to 42 has no nuclear at all.
You can see the chart.
That's 2040.
Yes, okay.
Looking as a scenario after 2040.
Yeah, so you start talking nuclear in 2040 then.
No, now even 2040.
No, unfortunately, Tula, can I come in? Because all kinds of nonsense we talked about. Right?
Okay. I think Lakshman, you finished, haven't you?
Yeah,
okay, Parakram.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, now to start with, I believe this is an unsolicited proposal. You see, so that is the whole problem with the Sri Lanka is all unsolicited proposal. Professor Rosa said he went to talk to so many people and all that, but nobody talked to us, the people of the country. You see, So if you are thinking of nuclear is necessary, then you must go through the proper procedure of having proper stakeholder consultation, then decide whether you want to go asking for an open list, not an unsolicited proposal. If somebody comes with a proposal, then everybody gets onto the bandwagon and try to push it along. That is the problem with this country. You see, and also the question is, why do we need nuclear? We know there's a long-term generation plan made by CEB, which has no nuclear at all. And also all these stories about waste power and all those things, they are all hacked. You see, there are no reason to go for any of those things. You see, there are enough and more modern technologies available where we can make sure that renewables, we can do this job. And also the thing is, even now in Sri Lanka, we are talking about solar and wind being intermittent and all that. But nobody talks about biomass. You see, you are talking about $4 billion for a 100 megawatt nuclear plant. I'll give 100 megawatts of dendro power for 200 billion rupees. You see, why are you looking at the options? Without just wasting all your time. Professor Rosa, your people's time is wasted on this kind of thing without looking at the basic requirements. It must start with what do we need and what do we have. Without doing that one, going on a tangent, simply because somebody has come and made an offer is the problem with this country. No unsolicited proposal should be considered at all.
Yeah, I think, Parakrama, I think Kirti is going to talk about this, about solicitors' proposals in detail. So any other questions you have there? Parakrama, I can go to Lakmal then.
Basically, I'm saying, why is a proposal being considered which are not being taken to the people? People must decide whether it's needed or not.
Please send you, because CEB is the one who is generating power at the moment. So I don't educate the
CEB's own generation plan does not have nuclear.
Yeah, but they have only 70% renewable. So
how no, 70% is by 2030. We have a commitment to go 100% renewables, but at least now.
Okay. Then no problem. Why we waste time?
Why are you wasting time? That's what I'm asking.
No. You just go and educate the CEB.
Dr. Chula?
Yeah. Just a second.
I'm missing here. One second comment actually. As far as I heard, Rosa said that in answering Lakshman, that Lakshman can show to the government that the concern funds of this atomic energy plants. Actually, the Rosa is in a very big position, and he can show directly without. We are newcomers in this field. Rosa is in a great position. Professor Rosa, actually, he can point out to the Prime Minister or the President the real side, real facts of the nuclear power and the plants. He can show it better than us. Why should we go and show to the President that this is and this is this? And Professor Rosa can do that. So it's for the government, for the whole country.
Okay, Cyril, anything else? I think Lakmal has raised hand. Lakmal, you want to make your comment as well?
Yes. Professor Rosa, I just would like to hear a few things from you about the process. Now, have you already started training people on this matter?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Are you saying that in confidence?
Yeah. No, now time to time, IAEA has given us training, but they are not complete. Now if you are going for a nuclear power plant.
As far as I'm aware, you have already sent people to various countries for training, CB people, PUCSL people. And there had been few instances where the people have been sent on training, if I'm not wrong. Okay, I'll go to my second. Right.
That is not
tell me, now, what is the operating life of this plant that you are thinking about? Is it 40 years or is it 50 years?
It's around 50 years.
50 years. So what is the operating costs for the per year of this 55 megawatt plant, including the raw material?
include the raw material, I would say the building capacity. First, the building one is very large.
No,
but
I have taken a lower number.
second,
I have taken a lower number like 1.5, 1.2 billion. You said 1 billion to 4 billion. So I have taken the lowest possible number at 1.2 billion. And I have done my math while you were, speaking earlier. So please tell me what is going to be the operating cost for, let's say for the entire 50 years, what are you planning for the raw material and the operating costs?
Because if you go for a barge, actually the refueling time is 10 years. Up to 10 years, you don't have to refuel because
No, I just need a number.
Type,
I will just need a number, Professor, for the 50 years.
Number, sorry, I don't have a number at the moment.
Right, then let me tell you about what I have gathered from your numbers. If we go at the lowest possible number, which is 1.2 billion for this 55 megawatt plant, it will generate basically for the period of 50 years, it will generate 23 billion units, right? And this is going to cost the taxpayers $0.052 per kilowatt hour of energy generation, just the capex only, right? Now, this is a very high figure. And when you add the running costs and raw material costs and everything together, this is going to be a no-go zone. As Parakrama, my friend, very clearly pointed out, we can do number of dendroplans. And as a professional, I think you should take this up with the president now, since you are very close to the president. You must take this up as very clearly Kirti and somebody else also said, it is your responsibility to lead the country in a correct direction instead of misleading people for these kind of, activities that are not going to be beneficial for the country. Number one, politically. Number two, environmentally. Number three, anything that is going to be doing with nuclear is not going to be good for a small island nation like Sri Lanka. I'm sure you are aware about it far more than what I know. So I think it is your responsibility to take it up with the relevant authorities. If it is the president that is necessary, the president, or if it is the cabinet, if it is necessary, the cabinet, and to enlighten them the downside of these projects, and try and nib it at the bud itself instead of trying to take people to various countries for training. And now you originally said that you have not sent, but I have, before I came here, I got to know that already there had been more than 4 or 5 people that's been sent overseas for training. So I think these are not good things for us to.
No, that is not correct. Actually, this IAEA, IAEA gives lot of training, short time training for all. It is not for a given project. Yeah, it is very true. Over the years, we have sent 150 engineers from CEB for this nuclear power. But is 1 week, 2 weeks at most. IAEA sends a lot of foreign workshops, fellowships for the training. But no, so we just send them. So it is not correct to say that we have sent people and we are not spending any cent from our from the country. They give us, they give the air ticket and they give everything.
Taking people out from the payroll for 2 weeks where they should be actually working is a cost for the country, Professor. I'm sure you understand that. For a reason that is beyond our reach, for a reason that is not suitable for Sri Lanka. Please bear in mind my points what I have just made with you. This cost per kilowatt hour, just the capital cost, is going to be about $0.53 at the lowest level. If it goes to at least the mid level, that is, let's say you said something between 1.1 billion to 4 billion. If it goes into the 2 billion level, it's going to be easily something like about 10 US cents per kilowatt hour. Only the capex, leaving the operating costs and everything else out. So this is not financially viable either, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lakmal. I think, Professor Rosa, please don't take any of the comments personally, because we are trying to develop a project that's actually friendly for Sri Lanka. So please do bear, because
we should have someone who is something. As far as I am concerned, I am not a person I am not close to the president. That is not true. I mean, why don't you all these renewable energy? I mean, I also like. So why don't you all go and meet president and educate him? Don't do. I'm not, because I'm a nuclear man. No, I had to safeguard my institute. No, so I can't go and say do the renewables. So I mean, why don't you go and tell the president, don't do this? We can supply all for renewables. So I can't do that because I am the chairman of Atomic Energy Board.
But you
So
are
please-
obliged to give the correct facts to the president. Like what Lakmal said,
Yeah,
you, are,
please
you
do
didn't know
that.
what the operating cost is. Without knowing that one, how can you be
No, we have studied the Indians are giving, if you convert the Indian nuclear power plant, if you convert that into Sri Lankan rupees, it's about 24 rupees per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, that is.
So I don't know how.
Okay, shall we go forward? Prinath, you raised the hand next year. Prinath, yeah.
Thank you, Professor. A quick question to Professor Rosa. Now, with regard to nuclear power, what exactly is our position? Have we decided to use nuclear power? Can we say that we have decided to use nuclear power? Or are we thinking it as a possible option for the future? Because
the second.
let me continue.
Okay.
Because I don't think we can decide on nuclear power in isolation. Our objective is to generate electrical energy required by this country at the lowest possible cost, taking into consideration the environmental and other relevant factors. So we have to look at all the energy sources before we can think of deciding on whether nuclear is the best for us or not, or it's a viable option or not. And that is a decision I think will have to be taken by the CEB. They have, as mentioned earlier, we have the generation expansion plan. If the generation expansion plan identifies nuclear power as a possible option, then we can go ahead, but we still do not know whether that option will be identified by the CEB or not. In my opinion, I think what we need to do now is to make the necessary preparations in case nuclear power becomes a viable option for us in the future, and it becomes the best option at one particular stage in the future. Even if we start now, based on what I know of nuclear power with my background, I would say it will take us at least 10 years to the time we could have a nuclear power plant in operation. That would be the minimum. But there are a lot of groundwork to be done before we could have even start deciding on a nuclear power project. Whether we are at that position, whether we are in a position to take that decision, I don't think we are in a position to take that decision. So my question to you is, have we decided to use nuclear power, or are we considering it as a possible option? Thank you.
Rosa, before I go to Nilmini, can I just mention, because now there's obviously pros and cons, and there's a need to develop this proposal in a more robust manner. And I can tell you that all the experts who are participating will contribute to you if you really want to develop a proposal, or even ask them to submit the pros and cons so that you can submit it through your channels as well. So Nilmini next year.
Thank you, Chula. Thank you so much, Professor Rosa. I hope, as Chula said earlier on, you don't take it amiss that there's a lot of feeling about nuclear power, and it's not at all personal in any way, and we're really grateful to you for your presentation. And one of the biggest concerns, as you've already heard, is the cost in the middle of a financial crisis, whether we can really afford to go into nuclear power. It's a long-term project, and we're already seriously in debt. And this concern about mixing renewables, there must be an option for a combined renewables offer for Sri Lanka, which will be much more beneficial in terms of cost, the environment, everything, the security, because there's so many factors that affect Sri Lanka in particular, and it might not be appropriate to compare ourselves with the UK or Bangladesh or these other countries. It must be right for Sri Lanka, because there's a lot of history here as well. There are security concerns as well as financial concerns, as well as environmental concerns. So if you combine all of those things, and you are indeed much better placed than any of us on this call probably to put forward a proposal where you're saying these are the costs in terms of nuclear. Would you also consider the combined renewables, given our international agreements and everything as well, instead? Or alongside, or instead. I think instead might be better than alongside nuclear, because we just can't afford it probably. But if you can put forward something on a really costed basis, then we can really approach somebody in government. But a comment that you made did worry me a little bit. That's when you said, well, the president is the government, and talk to him. Well, I'm not sure whether any of us, I mean, there are some of the people on this call who are very expert on this issue, but I'm a complete layperson. But there must be some way that you could influence this debate by putting forward a proposal that makes it clear to the president, so that it doesn't become yet another vanity project where we are trying to keep up with the Joneses, with Bangladesh or whatever. And it's a disastrous investment for Sri Lanka, which it can't afford right now, and will leave our future generations lumbered with huge problems unless we are really sensible about it and consider whether it's really appropriate for Sri Lanka right now or in the future.
Thank you, Nilmini. Dharma, you have raised your hand as well, Dharma. Yeah.
Thank you, Chula. I was waiting to hear from people to come at the end. I just want to say a few things. I'm one of the people who started promoting renewable energy from 1992. That's about 32 years ago. And obviously, referring to Professor Rosas, we have been known from early 1990s. During this HE Link program, I came across in Rosa is right, 2009, South Korea came to meet our president during that time and decided to bring a nuclear plant by 2025. I was the president of APSL UK during that time. I am the one who wrote the letter to the president and to the president of Atomic Energy Authority in Geneva, saying that nuclear power is not suitable for Sri Lanka because of these reasons. And then Fukushima accident took place. I don't know what happened, but in 2010, Rosa is right. Minister Champika Ranawaka went to Geneva with a plane full of people, and signed the agreement and came back and started the feasibility studies. What a waste of money we are spending from our public funds. And then it is 12 years now. During these 12 years, so-called consultants must have been looting our public money to write reports. And then now comes, a Russian ambassador comes and convince the president to bring Russian nuclear plants. Now again, I'm saying I was in these discussions. I have written hundreds of articles and given lectures and said, go for renewables, not for nuclear energy. But now it is going forward and it is approved by the cabinet. Now, Rosa, my friend, and I came to know another two professors, Professor Preenath Dias and Malinda Ranavira. Malinda Ranavira gave a presentation. He's the head of this project management unit for renewables, for nuclear power. And when I listened to that presentation, I was sick. This person doesn't know how to write the unit of the energy, but take the decision for the country. and he writes the kilowatt hours with capital K and small w. This lot doesn't know the difference between kilo and Kelvin. This lot doesn't know the SI units of the watt. How do you advise the government? Rosa, this is your responsibility. And I know only 3 people, but in this group, there are a lot of people. You are the people with the knowledge. When outside people come and say, right, we are going to give you a nuclear plant, you should have guts to say to the president, no, sir, this is not right for the country. It is the cost. It is the dangers. I was listening to Pathikada discussion by Rosa 3 times. Rosa hide the dangers. Rosa says we import oil, gas, coal, and even solar cells. Why not uranium? But you hide the dangers of uranium. All the others don't have that nuclear active problems. Our country is a country where we cannot manage the household waste on the road. How can we manage nuclear waste? And you say that Russians are ready to take the nuclear waste back. But if we work with the Western country, they will say, look, we are not going to get your nuclear waste back. We are in trouble. Please do not put our beautiful country into this trouble. And in that presentation, you have already selected 5 sites for nuclear reactors. You go to start a nuclear plant somewhere in Jaffna or Trincomalee, you will have another war in our country. Don't draw our country into this problem. Please ask these people. This is the consultants looting our public money. You all are going for your perks. You get trips to other countries. Just imagine, Russia is trying to sell their product to Sri Lanka. And they are trying to create jobs for Russians. I know these people have PhDs in nuclear energy. You can't run a nuclear plant. We need to have properly trained technicians. We need to get them from Russia. Do you want that situation? Our country is disorganized. Nuclear plant is not right. I live in UK, close to the Sellafield. They are now decommissioning, and I'm listening to the engineers' talks every month. They are scratching their heads. They say it will take 50 years. It will take 5 times the cost of commissioning cost. These are the dangers. Don't compare with Bangladesh or UK. Their economy is much better. And we are getting loans from Bangladesh. So, my dear Rosa, you are leading this. You are responsible. You must take the responsibility. Our Sri Lankan community is not foolish now. They know what is going on. Have the guts to say to the president, this technology is not right for the country. Don't waste any public money. And I must tell you, I have been promoting renewables from 1992. CEB was completely opposing it. Sri Lankan government was in a deep sleep. Last few years, they have been waking up because of the problems. But I must tell you, the private sector, in 1992, we had only 3 solar energy companies struggling. Today, Lakmal Fernando tells me that there are 200 companies registered and 60 active solar companies are installing them. We can become a renewable energy island. In the future, we should work for it. My dear Rosa, please tell the president, this is not right for us. Have that gut, have that courage. You have the knowledge to say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dharme, for that. Rosa, I'll tell once again, don't take anything personally. They all will help you if you want to do something and upgrade all the project proposals, etc. So you can write to me and I can negotiate and get all the collaboration sorted out for you. Dr. PAV.
Professor Dharmadas, please send you. I will forward it to the president. I mean, I mean, if you all can run, if you can give all this power from renewables, I mean, we are very happy. So I will just convey your message. Please send me your proposal or whatever whatever the things you have said. But actually now it is, I mean, I disagree with one thing. Actually, we have not spent any money on this. So, you know, even sometimes you always say that people are going for foreign trips and so on. But these are all IAEA funded. So they give us, even I have not gone anywhere. So, I mean, don't say like that, but rest of the things I have taken it seriously. I think you are correct.
Our APSL response has gone in 2010 to two presidents, president in Sri Lanka and also the president, Atomic Energy Authority president in Geneva. And even recently we have written from APSL response that appeared in the island very recently, the English one. We have translated that into Sinhala and Tamil. They will also appear. I can send you a copy, Rosa. That is not a problem. Yeah. We have given our APSL UK is a 500 professional membership, and this is our collective view, and we are trying to educate our people. What is the value of our education if we don't do the right thing for the country? We had the free education. We are trained to serve the country. We should do the right thing. Please remember, the person who comes to the president position doesn't have that technical knowledge. We can't expect that. When they take the decisions, we are the people who should say, sir, this technology is not right for the country. Shall we go this way? We should have that guts. We should have that backbone. That is why we have PhDs. Remember, I have produced 30 PhDs in the energy sector. Every year, I teach 100 MSc students for sustainable energy and energy management. I have done it for 50 years in universities. That is why I am shouting, because I have talked enough, I have written enough. I am sick of this. I don't like to see waste of our public money. That is why I'm saying, my dear Rosa, we are friends, we are physics professors, we have worked together. You have seen what I have doing with the HE Link program for 8 years to promote, and we are continuously doing it. We also have a project called Solar Village for sustainable development in the country. These are the things we need to do. That is our education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dharma. Dr. PAV.
We have to...
Just a minute, Kitsari.
We have to thank Professor Dharma for telling the essence, what we have to tell to Professor Rosa. Professor Rosa, actually, you must have the guts to tell the truth to the president and the relevant people.
Kitsari, thank you. There are several other people waiting. Dr. PAV, yeah, next, Dr. PAV.
Thank you, Chula. Am I audible? Am I audible, Chula?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you, Professor Rosa, for the time and the efforts. Well, I don't have I of course have a mixed feeling about it. I don't have any cemented idea to say no or yes. But few things, I just want to highlight 4 things here. First thing, of course, Professor, your reason, of course, the reason for you to work on this project shouldn't be the reason, which is that you're working related to nuclear. Whether you're working related to nuclear or not, of course, your perspective should be very, very holistic. I mean, you have to work as a gatekeeper on nuclear related stuff in terms of the nation. So, of course, just because that you're working or of course working related to nuclear, don't try or don't of course don't try to just implant such technologies. I think if you look through this in a holistic manner, that will be great. And the second thing, of course, regarding the risk component and the cost component. Yes, the capital cost is there and the risk also there. But I would like to request, of course, if you all can work towards the future R&D on certain perspective. Of course, in things like nuclear, in things like even solar, the capital cost is always reducing with the technological improvement. So that I mean, certain positive things could happen. Even the risk factor also, yes. Today, the risk and the waste factor is quite high in nuclear, but in the future, maybe with the advancement of the technology, those things might, of course, go a little lower. So I hope you all will work towards R&D and of course, you all have to be very open-minded on such things. And the third thing, of course, yes, we are a very small country in land terms, 65,610 square kilometers. As a small land mass, yes, it might be a risk. But still, if you see the big picture, Sri Lankan, according to UN CLOS, United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, we own an area of 517,000 square kilometers. Our exclusive economic zone. That's a huge area. And of course, with the delimitation UN CLOS laws, if the continental shelf is beyond the nautical mile, 200 nautical miles, we can own further, which means we can go up to 1,500,000 square kilometers if we, I mean, be really optimistic about it. So having such opportunities, having such a huge area of ownership, I mean, we might have some opportunities to use nuclear energy in a very safe manner. So such things, especially the area, the future area of Sri Lanka and the exclusive economic zone, having we have a very large exclusive economic zone. So when you look at the big picture, of course, to work as an oceanic nation, having nuclear energy in the future could be advantage. But again, as the last point, I'm telling you, so far, all these, I'm very grateful to all the professors who have worked through the renewable energy. Of course, take, of course, very serious note about such dangers and their points. Yet, if you can still stay open-minded with, with a very balanced mindset, and again, as I said, whether you're working on this or not, think multidisciplinary way, think in a holistic way, and think about the country, and please be a good gatekeeper on this particular perspective, especially regarding nuclear things. Just go. I'm just telling. Don't have a cemented opinion. Even for others, I'm just telling, because with the future, with the technological advancement, risk and capital and costing and all these things are changing vibrantly. So look towards such advancement in the future, Professor. That's what I want to tell you. Anyway, thank you very much for your efforts and all your. And I wish you all the best. And I will wish that all your good thoughts will somehow, be established in the future. Thank you very much. Again, thank you very much, Chula, for bringing this very, very comprehensive and precise meeting. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Dr. PAV. Prinath, we've already taken 1 hour, so can you make it short and make it to the point here? Prinath, next year.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. I would like to get a reply from Professor Rosa for my previous question. Are we saying that we have decided to use nuclear power, or are we considering nuclear power as a possible option?
Actually, it's considering, it's considering.
Okay.
We have not decided to use nuclear power as yet. Is that our position?
Pardon me?
We have not decided to use nuclear power.
Yeah, I mean, we have, we can't decide. Yeah. Nobody has decided, but we have these proposals. Even other countries might submit proposals. So we will wait and see, and we will look at the pros and cons and advise the government to take a decision. It is true that if we go with renewables, I think all of us will be very, very happy. So as Professor Dharmadas said, actually, why we go for nuclear power, if you can supply our energy demand from renewables. That is simple as that.
Professor,
Okay,
local
I think
people.
this whole issue is a misunderstanding of the impression that had been created that Sri Lanka has decided to use nuclear power, which is not the case. Number one, I think we cannot think of nuclear power until the CB decides. CB is the authority on deciding on power
Professor Dias,
sources in the country. I think we have a vision regarding our future. But there is a possibility, if there's a possibility of having to use nuclear power to meet our demand in the future, I think we should be ready for it. Professor, give me just a couple of minutes to clarify the situation. Now, our per capita consumption in Sri Lanka is about 600 kilowatt hours per person per year. Electrical energy is essential for economic development. If you look at the GDP and the per capita consumption of various countries, you can see the correlation. Even countries like Malaysia has a per capita consumption of 4,600, Thailand 2,600. In countries like Singapore, it is 8,000. Our per capita is 600. If you are going to develop this country without an increase in our electricity consumption, it is impossible to economically develop the country. And the resources we have are limited. We have renewables. We should use renewables to the maximum possible extent. I think there's no doubt about it. But certainly renewables cannot meet our demand. 100% of our demand cannot be met by renewables. We need to have other sources of energy. Other sources are fossil fuels and nuclear. Both have limitations. All kinds of energy sources have their limitations. And what we need to go for is the optimal mix of all the energy sources. And there's a possibility nuclear being one of the sources in that optimal mix. There's a possibility, which we cannot say now. But if there's a possibility of having to use nuclear in the future, I think we need to get ready from now itself, because these things take a long time. We need to train people. We need to do the feasibility studies. We need to have a strong regulatory authority. There are a number of things IEA has recommended for a country to use nuclear power. Then there's so many things that needs to be done. So we need to start from now. That doesn't mean that we have decided to use nuclear power, but we need to be in a position to use nuclear power if and when we need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Parakrama. Mervin has also raised his hand. Mervin, are you there? Mervin?
I agree with you. Actually, now even nuclear fusion might be viable now in 2015. So we have to have open eyes on nuclear power. We can't be just blind. You know, there are a lot of success in nuclear fusion. Now, even in our sun, actually, I always tell my students, I mean, solar power is nuclear power. Is of course, it's not fission, but fusion. So since it comes from the sun, we say solar. But what happens inside the sun is nuclear reactions. All the universe is fed, get energy from nuclear. So maybe nuclear fusion might be a viable option in 2050. So we can't have just blind eyes. As Preena said, we have to think of all the pros and cons. And then, of course, we have not decided. I will, if you send me all your deliberations and all these, your suggestions and observations on renewable energy, and if I can forward it to the government. So, as I always say, if you can run with renewables, there's no point of even discussing nuclear.
Thank you, Professor Rosa. I think we should move on because we have only limited time. And Malinda, who was the scientific officer, was going to speak, but he can't make it today. So I had a little section that he be relevant, but because of the time restriction, I'm going to go forward. And this YouTube link for his presentation was actually circulated earlier on. So let's go to the next speaker. That's Kirti. Kirti is an expert in many ways, and he's got basically I call him a project expert because he's worked in BMW for 35 years, something like that. So Kirti, yes, you can share your slides, Kirti. Kirti, I made you a co-host. It should work. Kirti? He's still muted.
I was on mute.
Yeah,
let
yeah.
me,
Okay, I undone that. Okay, good. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
I need to find out where is my.
Just try to be as short as possible. So
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize for.
shall I come back to you a bit later?
No. I'm trying to get share my screen, which is I'm struggling to do at the moment.
I made you a co-host, so you're a co-host at the moment, so you should be able to get it.
Yes, indeed. No, that's not the one.
Kirti, shall I go to the next and then come back to you?
Okay, now
you're done. Yeah, done. Yeah, good. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. My title is Question of Energy, Nuclear Power for Sri Lanka. Some thoughts to think about. Now, I think, first of all, I think people who are in this audience are highly educated and highly intelligent. So the first question is, what is the smart question we are trying to answer? I think the question is, how can we resolve the energy problems within 3 to 5 years to provide energy at an affordable cost in a sustainable manner to all Sri Lankans, enabling them to maintain a healthy, happy, reasonable living standard, whilst achieving sustainable growth in an environmentally friendly way, fulfilling all the commitments for the next 30 to 40 years. Now that's the smart question. So nuclear power, from what I heard today, is not going to be ready for at least 10 years. I think some speakers already commented on that. Parakam especially mentioned that. So I'm surprised that we are considering nuclear power to solve today's energy problems. Anyway, let's go ahead. So one of the things we must remember is that whatever we do, we must think about managing money and finances as well. Sri Lanka need to ensure we can only spend the same or less than we earn from our exports. So if we borrow and spend, we'll be getting deeper and deeper into problems. So unless we stick to this principle, we will never be able to recover and grow. So what are the possible solutions? For the energy problems or any problem, when we try to develop a solution, we must look at all possible options and then select the one or several in combination with the best benefits to cost ratio, with the least amount of risk and providing sustainable growth. So for the energy problems, what are the possible solutions? We already have coal-powered electricity. We have oil-powered electricity, hydroelectric power, solar power, wind power, geothermal power, nuclear power, biomass, and energy from waste. And there are a few others as well. So we must consider all these things and see in the Sri Lankan context, which of these things are really valuable and helpful. So in any project, whether it's nuclear power or coal power, whatever, we have to manage the project in an efficient and effective way. So at the planning stage, we must consider the following aspects. What's the amount of expenditure? If we don't know the expenditure, then we are going to fail. How much time do we need to reach the production stage to recover and start generating income? I already heard that in case of nuclear, it's going to take at least 10 years. So what is the payback period? I haven't heard anything about payback period, because the projects that I have been involved in, oh, by the way, Chula, I was working with Rolls-Royce, not BMW. I was part of the Rolls-Royce BMW for 10 years, but that was only a partnership. Most of my life, I worked for Rolls-Royce. Not Rolls-Royce cars, by the way. It's
So that
Rolls-Royce
makes you a double expert on that. Okay, thank you.
So I heard the payback period. And what's the benefits to cost ratio? What are the risks, short term, medium term, or long term? Now, I particularly want to focus on this issue, risks. We all know about Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Does anybody know the area affected by Chernobyl disaster? 150,000 kilometers squares. What's the size of Sri Lanka? 65,000 kilometers square. So one nuclear accident will wipe out the entire country. Is that what we want? Is that what we want? We must ask that question. And also, for any project, we must have the resources, finance, infrastructure, skills development, raw materials, supply chain, well-developed processes and procedures. So do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the skilled people for nuclear power? I don't think so. Yes, there are few people. I myself was trained in nuclear physics, by the way, well before some of these people in the audience, if they don't know that. And also Rolls-Royce is the only supplier in the UK who is permitted to develop nuclear energy in the UK, and they are responsible for the SMRs and the nuclear power. And the other question is, we must always ask, for any project, for any activity, do we have the resources available locally? If not, who is going to get the benefits? So if you are buying the Russian nuclear power plant, of course, there will be jobs created in Russia. Is that what we want? Now, to quickly summarize, I looked at various possible power sources, and I also looked at the cost of generating electricity, capital required, technology readiness, infrastructure readiness, available resources and skills, raw materials and fuel needs. When you consider all these things, I used the red, green, amber chart. Green means positive, amber means maybe borderline, red means no go. So what do we have for nuclear power? We have loads of reds, one green and one amber. But for hydroelectricity or many others, solar power is all green and amber. For wind power, it's all green and amber. For biomass, we have one red, but lots of greens and reds. So if we are really committed for Sri Lankan development, if we really want to develop Sri Lanka, we must consider all these things and make a rational decision based on real facts, not because it's my job. I'll keep my mouth shut because I want to safeguard my job. No, that's not the purpose. So, and the other thing is I want to highlight is that in February 2022, United States Institute of Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, they concluded for USA, they should not go for small to medium reactors to meet the energy requirements in next 20 to 30 years. So USA has concluded that's not the way forward. And Sri Lanka thinks they can go in that direction. Are we saying Sri Lanka is far more developed than USA? So USA recommends solar and wind power because they predict the cost of solar and wind power to come down hugely in the next 10 to 15 years, hugely. So that will be the most effective way to go forward. And many countries are already developing this. Also, I also will highlight the fact that in Wales, in Britain, they use hydroelectricity. During the daytime, they pump water into the tanks. At night, they use that water to generate electricity. So thank you very much indeed. I hope, Jula, I didn't take too much time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirti. Fantastic presentation summarizing how we should look at it. And please do help if Professor Rosa needs assistance to kind of write a better project proposal. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. And then next I'm going to share, if you take it down. Yeah, great. Thank you. And next is that we have so next we have Professor Lakshman is going to talk. And
Okay, Chula, thank you. I think I might need 12 minutes or so, but I'll go rather fast.
Go.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Rosa, for participating in this discussion. It's very, very important. We all talk to each other, experts or academics interested in our mother country. So, nuclear power for Sri Lanka. I will go through this quickly. Our president, I don't know who is the president at that time, 2016, they met, this is a United Nations organization, COP, concerned with the environment. So they met in Morocco in 2016 and signed an agreement to go for renewables by 70% renewables by 2050. Okay, renewables.
2030.
2030. And 100% by 2050, right?
Yeah, 100% by 2050.
Okay. Yeah. Now, that is 2016. With that background, there was a effort by UNDP and ADB, fully funded, and after going through a lengthy study and discussions with experts, they developed a report in 2017. This is the cover of that book. 100% electricity generation by 2050, right? As Parakram quite rightly mentioned. So this is the ADB UNDP report. And at that time, Dr. Suren Bhattackoda was the secretary to the Ministry of Power. So it's a very comprehensive report produced at a cost of, I don't know how much at that time. Then 2060, I think this group, COP, world leaders meet once in 2 years or so. So this is a 2021 meeting in Glasgow, where President Gotabaya Rajapaksa signed again 70% generation from renewables by 2030 and 100% by 2050. Then last year, there was a similar meeting, COP meeting in Egypt. And I'd like to, this is the statement by UN Secretary General. We need a renewable revolution, not a self-destructive fossil fuel resurgence. Today, fossil fuel producers and their enablers are still racing to expand the production. Okay, so he's concerned about this. Sorry, and part of the slide is missing. Yeah. So Secretary General UN says, if we are to avoid climate catastrophe, renewables are the only creditable path forward. I'm stuck. Right. Then subsequently, 2022-2041 CEB long-term generation plan. This is the cover of the book. 2022 to 2041. This is approved by the Public Utilities Commission. October 2021, CEB long-term generation plan, approved by the PUCL, Dr. Janaka Ratnayaka. And this is how it looks like beyond beyond 2023 or 4. You can see yellow solar, green wind, and the blue hydro. and biomass is in red. So this will be the next 20 years CEB long-term generation plan. Okay. Same thing, major hydro, biomass, mini hydro, wind, solar. No nuclear in sight until 2041. CEB approved generation plan. Same thing. Solar, wind, mini hydro, major hydro, same thing. These are Lanka 2050 electricity generation, 100% renewables. The CEB long-term generation plans, even beyond 2046, only renewables. Renewables and supplemented by low carbon emission, whatever the fuels, if we have. This generation plan has 3 scenarios, scenario 1, 2, and 3, and all these have only renewables and other mixers, but no nuclear. India, Sri Lanka, there's a plan to connect Sri Lankan grid to the Indian grid. That is another development they are considering. Okay, this is the latest CEB expansion plan prepared by the same engineers who prepared the earlier 2 reports. This 2023 to 2042, the latest, approved by the Public Utilities Commission in a hurry, late February. So this is approved by, okay, 10th February 2023. This is approved. So only thing is they have added, in this chapter, scenario 1, 2, 3, similar to the earlier ones, similar 4 nuclear power scenario, 1 possible scenarios. So in that plan, they say considering nuclear power development beyond 2040. This is the CEB generation plan approved by the PUCL in a hurry in late February this year. These are the new members of the PUCL. New members.
That tells the story.
Okay, so these are again their generation plan. Again, renewable is not mentioned because that comes as the last scenario anyway. Okay, if we go for nuclear, what happened? This is a simple nuclear power reactor. Uranium is in the reactor core. So these are producing steam, which turns a turbine and generates electricity. So this reactor core has radioactive material. So if during a meltdown or accident, radioactive waste will be radiating out. Radiation will be coming out. So this is uranium. We have raw material uranium in Sri Lanka, but we don't have technology for enrichment. So we send it out. So uranium during the fission reaction will be split into other sub particles, subnuclei, and those are very highly radioactive. So uranium 235. So it's a radioactive. If this reactor core is exposed to the environment. Most reactors have a core where the reaction takes place. Inside the core of rods, assemblies. So these are the basic physics that we teach students in nuclear fission. This is simply nuclear power reactor. So the nuclear reaction here generates a lot of heat that will change the water to steam, and the steam power the turbine, which supplies electricity to the grid. 3 recent nuclear disasters: 3 Mile Island in the US, Chernobyl disaster in Russia, Ukraine, Fukushima in Japan. So a lot of radiation. Problem is, during these accidents, which can never be predicted, and also people are not prepared for this. It can happen at any time, at any place, in any reactor. That possibility is there. The danger is, unlike any other accident, this nuclear radiation is emitted to the environment. Not only emitted, they create secondary radiations. So whole environment, not only humans, plants, animals, water, the air we breathe, the water we drink, everything will get contaminated with radioactivity if we are exposed. So there's a high risk for the whole environment, living, non-living things. So these are the recent newspapers, including the APSL newspaper articles in all 3 languages. So they try to make the public and the decision makers aware of this. I'm sure the decision makers must have read these things, but keep it a blind eye. These are Times article. So this presentation earlier referred to Professor Rosa giving his television Pathikada video. So here this Daily Mirror says on March 1st, Professor Rosa has said the government has sought to implement the project in collaboration with the Russian government. So nuclear power poses numerous threats to people and the environment. It's not a sustainable energy source. And uranium mining will emit all kinds of greenhouse gases and radioactivity into the environment. Nuclear weapon proliferation, sabotage by terrorists, nuclear waste management, nuclear accidents, fuel chain we have to maintain, nuclear decommissioning of the plant at the end of the period. These are all huge problems where, as a small island nation, we will have to face in the future. Cost comparison. I just had a few minutes just before this preparation. In the US, in the state of Georgia, they have compared the cost of renewables versus nuclear for electricity generation. This is a new comparison. Renewables have won. Let's see. This is a nuclear reactor being built in state of Georgia, USA. Construction started 2013. The estimated cost $30 billion US, and the plant capacity 1.117 megawatts each. So 2 such reactors. They will be operating 16 hours per day. Because in the night, in the daytime we have solar light directly. So these are called S+S systems, solar and storage. Solar plus storage batteries would cost 17 million for the same capacity. So nearly half, and no risk. And you can refer this article, the link is here. Okay, this is a typical solar panel, windmill, and battery storage system, which can compete with nuclear, price-wise, no hazardous. These technologies are coming up and very much in the next 10-15 years, and the cost is expected to go down like solar cells and inverters. So we have a choice, and we need a public debate, and I appreciate Professor Chula's effort to get the experts today to discuss. This is a very good start, and we welcome Professor Rosa to be on board with us and convey the correct message to the decision makers. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshman, for that. Fantastic. Yeah. Any questions to Lakshman? We can go forward to the next speaker. Okay, nobody's raised their hand so far. So I will, Dharme. Yes, Dharme. Dharme?
Sorry, it is a mistake, Chula. Please go ahead.
Okay, so the next is on our agenda. I'll just show. It's Lakmal Fernando. Lakmal Fernando, I think you have to do a little bit of self-introduction, but I believe you are the most active person in renewable energy in Sri Lanka at the moment. So let's listen to you, Lakman. I think I made you a co-host, so you should be able to tell us rights.
different window.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Hi. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Different people from different areas, I believe. It has been a very interesting conversation and a lot of knowledge I have gained. I'm Lakmal Fernando. I have been in the renewable energy trade for the last 10.5 years and predominantly in the solar arena. So right now, of course, I've been in the Sustainable Energy Authority Board of Members last year. And right now, I'm the chairman of the National Chamber of Commerce Energy Council. And I also work in the Energy Committee of the Ceylon Chamber. So that's a little bit about myself. So I have taken this topic, nuclear power plants, necessity, luxury, or suicide. So you will understand it better as I go by. So the background is, I believe these things were discussed a number of times, but my numbers about the estimated cost is wrong. So I would like to stress that point there. A 55 megawatt plant would cost approximately $1 to $4 billion, as Professor Rosa very clearly explained. So this is resulting as I have explained in my question to Professor Sosa, this will result us spending 52 US cents per every kilowatt hour that we generate out of this project for a period of 50 years. And as many other eminent speakers have been expressing their opinion, the removal of the plant is going to cost us even more. So it can be multiple billions of dollars when we try to remove the nuclear waste and the plant after 50 years of life cycle. And of course, none of us would be there. So our children's children probably after about 2-3 generations will be paying for this. So I don't think any of us in this forum or in the parliament have any right to take this decision. This is a very serious decision that we should be taking. It should go into the level of, I would say, a referendum to that level, because this is taking generations of people at risk. So what is our requirement right now? Of course, when we looked at this some time ago, the demand projection was by 2030, 31,000 gigawatt hours. And it was proven wrong. And it had come down to 25,253 gigawatt hours with the recently submitted long-term generation plan. And I think that also will be slightly, changed downwards because of the ongoing economic issues, not only for Sri Lanka, but for the world as well, because the world economy has shrunk by about 30 to 40% in different countries in different perspectives. So that is affecting our exports drastically. And it is happening right now. And we are expecting major downturn in electricity usage time to come, probably starting April for a long period. And the forecast, what we had for 2023 earlier was 18,000 gigawatt hours. Now it is estimated at 15,866 gigawatt hours. But I think it will most likely settle down around 14,000 gigawatt hours. So basically, this has majorly impacted the low economic growth and electricity consumer price hike. We have seen after the last year, electricity consumer tariff going up, about 12% shrink in the electricity usage, and probably about another 15% from this month to next month with the full bill being served to the consumers. We have 6,350,000 electricity consumers, and out of this, good 4.5 million people were seriously affected with this recent electricity tariff hike. So all of them will be going into energy poverty and possibly will be reducing their usage, curtailing their usage for a very long time. And as a result, the demand will be coming down to around 14,000 gigawatt hours. This is the actual energy mix of the last year, 2022. 2022 was a very high hydro yield year. So we have had approximately 50+% from hydro. And of course, other renewables and everything together, we have had about 52%. And coal, as usual, it had given about 33%, and 8% from CB oil, and IPP oil about 7%. Now, this is not a number that we can be anticipating every year. Generally, after every 3 years, every 4 years, once in every 3 years, once in every 4 years, we get this kind of a feedback from the hydro production. And summary of the current status. Projected energy requirement for 2030 is down to 25,000 gigawatt hours from 31,000 gigawatt hours previously. Our energy commitment to the international community by 2030 is 70% renewables for the entire electricity usage. Now, this needs us to generate 18,000 gigawatt hours from renewables. And the current generation, what we have, is about 8,000 gigawatt hours of renewables. So we need to add mere 10,000 gigawatt hours during the period of 2023 to 2030. So how are we going to add this? Now, this is the combination that was proposed, and we have taken it forward in terms of long-term generation plan. 5 gigawatts of solar by 2030 and 5 gigawatts of wind by 2030. So there may be slight changes in these numbers. I have rounded it off for the convenience sake. And numbers looks very, very conducive. Of course, if we can go into a $4 billion investment for nuclear power, then we can definitely go in for investing that 4 billion into wind and solar. I don't know where it comes from, of course, but that's the possibility. And this is going to be the renewable energy, the energy pie for the 2030 Sri Lanka. And the potential for solar and wind in Sri Lanka is massive. This was the study done by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Sri Lanka. We are having solar potential of about 106 gigawatts and wind potential of about 102 gigawatts. So right now we are in a very, very elementary stage. So we can roll out. The barren lands have been identified for both these energy sources. So the potential is there. Of course, you may have seen there is a massive international interest in coming into Sri Lanka. There are certain fine-tunings that we will have to do in order to protect the Sri Lankan consumers, which I believe will happen with the interference from the government and Public Utilities Commission. So when that happens, there will be enough interest with the economy stabilizing, because this 10 gigawatts of renewable energy, what we are speaking about, will need approximately about $10 billion. So all our banks put together, we may not be able to borrow anything more than $1 billion. So that is why we need internationally bankable power purchase agreements in order for us to move into this and promote energy sector in the international market, Sri Lankan energy sector in the international market, so that the investors will get excited about it and come and do their investments in Sri Lanka in long-term basis. So what we have proposed was basically two-tier tariffs until the loan installments are being settled the first 10 years to tag to a dollar-based tariff, and then after the loans are being paid to tag it to a rupee-based tariff. So the country will gain and the investors will have certain element of interest being uplifted. So this is the solar resource map for Sri Lanka. I'm sure this is nothing new to any of you around this discussion thread. And the wind resource map is also massive. So that is why I said that there is about 2 in Sri Lanka. This is an energy exportation economy we are speaking about, not just renewable energy for Sri Lanka. We have enough renewable energy that we can even export to neighboring countries. We are discussing right now with the South Asian region to have a South Asian regional grid, so that intertrading of energy can be done within Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, Maldives, Pakistan, Thailand, and Bhutan and Nepal. So all these things are happening right now. And HVDC cable is one such thing, but the proposal have been accepted and moving forward. But that's only a little bit of it, because we are talking about exportation of energy in the form of green hydrogen. So that's the future that we are looking at. And renewable energy is going to be one of the largest new export lines for Sri Lanka time to come. And the benefits, the financial security, energy security, capital cost to basically the government, nothing. And energy democratization. Right now we have approximately about 650 megawatts of energy being produced by prosumers. And employment generation, right now we have generated about approximately 10,000 to 12,000 employment from this little bit of renewable energy what's been commissioned here in Sri Lanka, and it's environmental friendly, and the economic benefits are immense, and it goes on and on in the cycle. And when you look at the energy security, now we all understand that we are seriously dependent on fossil fuel. The whole unloading problem we have, and as much as the fuel prices fluctuates in the global markets, our energy can fluctuate. So all these problems are there, and a slight problem in the international markets can result drastic changes into our energy future. So that is why we need to stay as much as energy independent from other sources, and if at all possible, an interconnection to the South Asia. So that's the only way forward. Nuclear plants, dependence on externalities, environmental risk, and the political risk is way greater than the environmental risk. So I think it would be the best for us to not to align with any of the big powers and stay neutral, so that we will be identified as a neutral country, and not for the sake of being neutral, but in real terms being neutral. And in the current context, it is definitely not the best country to align with. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakmal, for basically putting a visionary map to us in relation to the options available and what else can be done. Fantastic, and thank you so much. So next is there anybody else who wants to talk about the subject? And I want to
any questions, Chula? I can
not
take
yet.
a couple of
I don't
questions.
think anybody's raised any hands yet, so I'm just waiting to see. That's what I'm saying. If there's anybody who wants to raise questions or comment or anything, it's the time. And also anybody else who wants to talk as well. Lakman, you can take down your presentation. Thank you.
That's what I'm trying, yes.
Chula Parakrama has raised his hand.
Yeah, Parakrama. Yeah, just now. Yes, Parakrama. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
No, just a couple of comments.
Yeah.
I'm appalled at the way the Sri Lanka's energy availability is being talked about. You see, I'm thankful for Lakmal for showing the actual picture. We have more and more than anything we need, and all of them are renewable. You see, we'll have to look at this in a broader sense than just getting electricity or something like that. Energy has to be is the most important thing for national security, and it must be in our hands, right? And we are struggling hard to get rid of oil and coal because we are so dependent. And we know the trouble we are in because there were people who promised to give coal at 3 rupees and they are not to be seen anywhere. Now we are generating coal at 70 rupees. So now, although Professor Rosa said that the operating cost will be low, we don't know how low it's going to be. He didn't have any number for that one. And leaving all that aside, there are two fundamental things we have to talk about. One is that we have accepted principle that electricity generation should be at the least economic cost, right? So that's the first test to be done. Now, he could not answer that question and Lakmal gave the answer. So on that count itself, it goes out of the window. Next is, of course, our non-dependence, that we are trying to be independent of energy. So that again, having got rid of, trying to get rid of oil and coal, we are now trying to get into something else which we don't have. Now, I circulated the article a little while ago, Australia, with all its resources for this thing of uranium, definitely saying that they will not go for any nuclear. Right now, we have also the kind of, I was sorry to hear Professor Rosa tone when he talks about renewables. That's the kind of tone we had from the CEB about 5 years ago. Fortunately, they don't have that tone anyway. They are very clearly have said renewables is the least cost option. And they are very, very favorable in doing that one. I don't know how that nuclear thing came into that long-term generation plan. It was not there in the first draft that was put to the PUCSL. We know what happened at the PUCSL. So that's how it has been thrown in, you see. But this is disgraceful the way things are being done. So unless we look at the fundamentals and decide, at that stage itself, nuclear goes out of the window. We shouldn't be even talking about it. Real cost, and of course, the dependence, going back to dependence on our outside sources, and of course, all the kinds of risks that have been talked about. It doesn't require any long discussion. So that way, we must depend on people like Professor Rosa, who are in the helm to paint the correct picture. He being a nuclear scientist does not mean that he can, ignore his moral responsibility to the country. That's all I had to say, Chula.
Okay, thank you, Parakrama. Any Nilmini? Yes, we have got a few more minutes, so we have to finish. Nilmini, next year. Nilmini.
Yeah, I was just thinking that this is too serious a topic just to be left to the politicians. So isn't this something that needs a technocratic kind of answer? Couldn't those people who spoke today, like Lakmal, Professor Lakshman, like Professor Dharme and several of you others as well, couldn't you put together a proposal based on renewable energy to the CEB and the president and whoever else? Could you not put together a little working party from those experts amongst you and put something in writing?
Yeah, we'll work on that, Nilmini. I just want to do a poll about everybody's opinion, and then we'll take it forward. And you'll see when you see the questions on the poll, it's exactly what I'm asking. Thank you, Nilmini, for raising that. And Dharma, yes, you have a question as well.
Thank you, Chula. It's 3 quick comments I want to make. Thank you, Lakmal, for mentioning green hydrogen. The future of energy, future is using freely available solar and wind to break down water molecules, freely available water to make hydrogen. The hydrogen will be the energy carrier in the field. In Europe, thousands of companies are coming. In the city I live in, Sheffield, there is a company called Hydrogen Company. So this is coming now. Within a couple of years, these companies will be everywhere in the world. So that is my first comment. The second comment, I mentioned that every year I teach hundreds of MSc students. We have every energy source, we look at pros and cons. One of my PhD students made this comment. He said, nuclear energy is a very selfish energy use. We use the energy for luxury, our comfort today, and leave the nuclear waste to sort out for our next generations. What a selfish way of energy use. That is my second comment. Third comment and final one is Professor Dharmavardhana from Canada is a very senior chemist and a physicist involved in this energy field. He is writing so many articles saying no to nuclear energy. Please don't ignore this. And also Professor Shanti Mendis, who lives in Geneva, working with the World Health Organization, writing every time, no nuclear energy for Sri Lanka, it's not suitable for Sri Lanka. Please do not ignore these voices. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dharma. Yes, Ranjan.
Thank you, Chola. Comment one. Nuclear energy, if we go for nuclear energy, it will make the gap between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor, wider. It will make the gap between the rich and the poor wider. Whereas if you go for renewable energy, you will be narrowing that gap and creating millions of jobs. Renewable energy has the capacity to uplift millions from the poor. So that is comment one. Comment two, coming from Lakmal, he emphasized this point. See, the need for Sri Lanka to be neutral. The Russian proposal and promises ostensibly very generously to take back the nuclear waste. That is the sting in that proposal, because we will get caught in their geopolitics and Sri Lanka will be held to ransom and we cannot be neutral. Thank you.
Thanks, Ranjan. Yes, that's a very specific concern that we have, that we need to be non-aligned. And Mervyn, yes, Mervyn.
Very briefly, to summarize a couple of points only. We talk a great deal about the nuclear issue. I think, but another thing that was not said, but the elephant in the room is the security. Sri Lanka as a nation is suffering from insecurity. Insecure as a nation, physical safety, life, death, food insecurity, economic insecurity, and not knowing whether children have a future. And we as a nation live in fear and greatly distrustful of our people, our leaders, and their capacity to protect and provide for our nation. So most of these things, how we think and react is dependent very much on how people feel, but for good reasons. But for some reason, although we Sri Lanka call ourselves a democracy, when it comes to these sort of life and death decisions, the decision makers don't seem to consult the people, give them a say. We like to keep them in the dark and make decisions above their heads, and that affect them. They are the ones, these are the people, today's people and children, future generations, who will have to pay the penalty for all these misdecisions, all these wrong decisions, as we have already seen. Just to build on what Ranjan just said, Russia, through its behavior over the last few years, has got a label as one of the most untrustworthy suppliers. Germany, that was heavily dependent on Russia for gas and various other energies, have decided to cut the ties, and lots of other countries are doing the same. Obviously, China and India are benefiting from the surplus. That's a different matter. So all of a sudden, Russia decided to offer a nuclear plant to Sri Lanka from nowhere and pretty much imposing on us. You need to think and say, well, is this a Trojan horse being offered to us yet again? And Professor Rosa earlier on said that president is the government is the president, which means that he seems to make decisions. I wonder whether it's a bit like, the Independence Day celebrations, or the countries will think ill of us if we don't celebrate independence, or whether the president is driven by the logic that, oh, if we don't have a nuclear plant, the rest of the world will laugh at us as being poor, whether that is the motive that is driving us thoroughly to ignore everybody else and thoroughly want to go nuclear. So in a way, thank you, Professor Rosa, for listening to it all. It hasn't been comfortable to put myself in your shoes, but as it was pointed out, it's nothing personal. People have been professional, spoken very openly. Obviously, in your role, you are the authority people look up to, you have the label. I think the word is you are duty bound to speak the truth to the power, so that while it may be uncomfortable, the future generations will thank you wearing that hat. To the deaf ears, you spoke the truth and pointed out, yes, nuclear is good for some countries, not for Sri Lanka, not now, to tell them not to go ahead with that. And these professionals will support you in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melvin, for that.
Thank you so much. Can I just give me a 1 minute?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. I think after listening to Mr. Lakmal's presentation, Sri Lanka is in good hands. So we have 55 gigawatts of solar and 55 gigawatts of wind. So why nuclear? Why nuclear?
Thank you, Professor Rosa, being here. And I just want to do a quick poll that will come up on your screens. About 5 questions are there. Single choice questions, just say yes and no. The results are completely anonymous, and it will come up as a graph in your screen. And that will decide, this poll will decide what Leeds is going to do. And if you want to get involved with whatever the decision that we make here now, please write to me on admit@srilankaleads.com, and because we'll be taking this forward until we see a reasonable solution. So we'll be balanced, we'll be unbiased, and we'll be facts and evidence-based. That's, I must say, all the time. So I'll stop share this now, and then I will put this poll forward if it works. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So it's about the Russian nuclear power plant. That's exactly the question we're having. So we've launched it now. So you got several questions, yes and no. You can answer those, and the results will come up. The first one is needs a detailed and transparent feasibility study.
Chula, what's the explanation for number 2? It's formulated in the negative, so it's a bit difficult to.
Yeah, it's not appropriate amidst this economic crisis. So the stem of the question is Russian nuclear power plant. A project in Sri Lanka is not appropriate in this economic current crisis. That's what it says. So not appropriate means yes, means not appropriate.
Okay.
Chula, in the case of number 3, I think it's better to state renewable energy sources.
Yeah, yes, I put alternative, but I mean, you can interpret based on the discussion we did, yeah.
Also, Lakshman, when you say, I mean, I know when you say renewables, is hydropower included in it, or
yes, hydro.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it should include biomass also, which nobody talks about.
Yeah.
Dr. Chula, the other 2 questions will come later.
It's all
The
there.
next slide.
It should be there in your
Further
screen
down.
if you scroll it down.
Scroll down. Yeah.
Very likely to.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's good if all can answer as much as possible, so you get a balanced view. I hope everybody's answered.
Yeah, I
Okay.
will submit it.
Yeah, I think most have answered. I can end the poll so it will show you the results in your own screens. Can I do that? Yeah. Okay. So the poll is ended, and then I'm sharing results at the moment. I'm trying to share. You've seen the results now?
Right.
Okay. So if you 16 people answered for the last question, should the lead take further action based on poll decisions? 100% have said yes. So we will have to take on that. So please write to me about how we can go forward. So the first answer needs a detailed and transparent feasibility study. 16 out of 16 answers 100%. So as it's needed. So it's not appropriate amidst this economic crisis. This proposal is not appropriate at this present time. So 16 out of 16 answered, 88% saying it's not appropriate, 13% saying appropriate. Then alternative energy sources should be maximally explored
Chula,
first.
can I add something there, Chula?
Yeah.
I think it's not appropriate under any economic condition to Sri Lanka.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's okay. So yeah, we are actually talking about the present time. So alternative energy sources should be maximally explored first. 100% agreement for that, not a single one descending. And very likely to end up as another white elephant. Again, out of the 16, 81% say it's very likely to end up as a white elephant, which is a significant number. And now 100% is saying the lead should take it forward. So I'm very grateful for everyone's answers on that. That gives us a vision as to how to go forward. And are there any other comments before we close? We are just gone 2 minutes beyond time, which is great, but no, 7 minutes beyond time. Thank you very much. Udita, yes, Udita.
Hi, Chula. Sorry, I don't know anything about this subject, but I was just wondering, in this sort of situations, we have got various bodies have produced a long-term plan up to 2040 or 2050. Should any donor countries or organizations should look at the plan made by the country and provide input within that proposal, rather than parachuting some other thing which is not considered by the country. I mean, to me, it looks as if Russia is parachuting these nuclear project, which was not in the proposal plans by the country's authorities. So in that context, I feel that it is a completely inappropriate suggestion.
Yeah, correct, Kudita, but Professor Rose mentioned in his talk that, president is the government and government is the president. So which
you can't accept that one, although he says that one. This is a terrible situation. You can't even mention that one.
Actually, it's true, but that is the reality. That is the reality.
That is reality, all right, but we can't.
That is
let
the
that
reality
happen.
in this country.
Yeah, we can't really.
Yeah.
You can't accept that.
So,
please change that. Please change that.
So no, we can work towards trying to get more compliance. Yes, there are ways and means of doing it. So don't be negative. We can still work. We don't have to keep silent.
No.
Yes,
Chula,
Lakshman.
now I don't agree with one of your questions saying that we should have feasibility study. You see, before you go to that one, the fundamental questions say that we don't even look at it. So don't waste more time and money on doing feasibility studies on something we don't need or we don't want. So that question, so that first question, although we answered that, is inappropriate. We don't need that at all. There are fundamental questions to be asked first, which should make that decision early. You should
Exactly.
put that as a question.
Exactly. They have been doing it for 12 years, since
Yeah,
2009.
then how much
Don't
money
waste,
busted?
don't waste our funds.
Okay, I'll take that comment. Kirti answered that quite well in his presentation. Lakshman, yes, Lakshman.
Chula, I want to mention that although for setting up a nuclear power plant, we are not in agreement, the education part of it, nuclear physics as a discipline and as a research area should be continued without any reduction.
That's correct, Lakshman. That's why I very specified the question at the very beginning of this discussion, saying that we are only talking about power generation at this particular time. Viraj, yes, Viraj. Viraj, you raise your hand.
Yeah, I am Viraj representing Sri Lanka Academic Energy Board. Actually, I just want to tell you all that Professor Rosa is not the only person to talk to the president. All the other professionals like you can meet president and give you proposals with other possible options for the power generation. Then actually this mainly the Ceylon Electricity Board, CB should be the main should play the main role of this issue. Then that is what I want to tell you.
Thank you, Viraj, because we'll be taking some action collectively. I think it's good if you can tell us that you will also join this, because then we can collectively develop the methods that we are going to approach, because there are many ways of doing things. People have different ideas and so on. So yes, please, please join and let us know. And thank you for telling that we have to contact CEB. We did have president in our minds, but we'll contact the CEB as well. Prinath, yes.
Thank you, Professor. I think the proposal from Russia has not been accepted, and it should not be accepted with regard to nuclear power. I think there's no question about it. Maybe there are other elements in that proposal that can be accepted, but the offer of a nuclear power plant should not be accepted. But having said that, I would also say that nuclear power should remain as a possible option for the future, because we are planning for an uncertain future. There are so many uncertainties. We need to be aware of, we have very limited options, and we should not let go any of the options at the moment. It doesn't mean we have to spend a whole lot of money, but we should be aware of the possibility of having to use nuclear power in the future, and also the possibility of the technological development making it possible for us to use nuclear power. So this option should be kept open, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranath, for that comment. Yes, Lakmal, you are there.
Yes, just one small suggestion. Now, a few years ago, Atomic Energy Authority wanted to build a building for themselves. And they had a board placed in somewhere in Malawi, if I'm not wrong, saying that proposed site for Atomic Energy Authority. My sincere request for anyone who is promoting this, have that board in wherever that you want to, install this plant, and then you will get the reaction, because even the office building was not allowed to build. That's the reaction of people of the country. So 23 million will respond. If you have that board somewhere, wherever that you have named, identified the 5 sites, just in one site have that board, then people will talk, people will, respond properly.
Thank you, Lakman. Yes, correct. We might have a big backlash from the people as well. So that is why we need to get this thing right in the first place. Yes, Ranjan.
Thank you, Chula. Something that was not mentioned so far. If we want to go nuclear, we can go nuclear without uranium. We can do it with thorium, with all, to a very large extent, all the adverse effects of using uranium to generate electricity can be avoided. 2 countries are doing research on this subject, as far as I know. Lakmal and others also will know this. They are China and India. They are doing research on generating energy, electricity, using thorium instead of uranium for this reason. And another advantage Sri Lanka has is thorium is available in Sri Lanka. So we don't need to be dependent on any other country, Russia, China, America, or anybody else. So, but of course, this is in the long term, not short term. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjan. Thank you very much. And I think I had to thank everybody, including Professor Rosa in particular, for being around and answering the questions. And I'm sorry if we have made kind of a personal comment. And on behalf of everybody, this is actually a very much a professional conversation. And we are happy to help Professor Rosa if he wants to, but also we will take this forward from here based on all the professionals' viewpoint as to how to take this forward. So we'll be doing that. And if you want to get involved directly, please do write to me, and then we will take this forward from there. All right. Thank you for that. Today we take an extra 15 minutes.
Good night, Kirti. Good night.
Yeah. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you very much.
Chula. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.